Welcome to Sales Tax and More, your go-to resource for all things state tax related. Now, here is your host, Michael Fleming.
Hi, Mike Fleming here, founder of Sales Tax and More, and today's co-host of the Sales Tax and More podcast, where we talk about everybody's favorite topic, which is, of course, sales tax. And today we're going to have Ellie Moffitt interview me, and our topic is going to be why doing what you've always done for sales tax could be a disaster waiting to happen. So, Ellie, you want to say hi before we get into the interview here?
I do. Hi, everyone. Hi, Mike. Really great to be here. I'm going to do a quick introduction for Sales Tax and More, and then I'll start grilling you. So Sales Tax and More is a full-service consulting and solutions firm. We have a really great team here of experienced tax professionals who are very dedicated to fulfilling your state tax or related needs. So we do a lot of returns, registrations, consultations, research, and like our name states, more. So if you have questions about our services, please reach out and ask. We'll give you lots of information on how to do that, and there should be lots of written information for you linked to this as well. So, Mike, I have heard from our salespeople that many companies they speak with are telling them that they reviewed their sales tax with their accountant 3, 5, even 10 years ago. Are these companies okay? Do you think these companies are okay?
Well, you know, just like a lot of branches in sales tax, it depends. But in general, absolutely.
Our favorite answer in
Our
sales
favorite
tax.
answer. But in general, my answer is going to be absolutely not. And two main reasons for this. Number one, things are constantly changing. I mean, I talk to accountants out there, really smart people who, know a whole lot more than me, except when it comes to sales tax. And they tell me that, things like services are just not taxable. Well, 10 years ago, not a lot of services were taxable, but nowadays, just about every state actually taxes some type of service, and some states actually tax all services. So things change, in the sales tax world, things are constantly changing, and, digital products and, software as a service, these are all new, items that have come up. So how are the states, treating those? So that's one part of this. But when we're talking about change, the whole sales tax universe was altered back on June 21st of 2018. We had the Wayfair case, and this changed everything. And prior to this, maybe what your accountant told you is true. Maybe it wasn't. But let's assume that it was true. That's ancient history. That's before this cataclysmic change that's happened out there. I mean, you no longer need a physical presence to create a requirement to collect sales tax. I mean, companies that have never had a requirement to collect sales tax, except in their home state perhaps, all of a sudden have a requirement to perhaps collect tax everywhere. And this is a lot of exposure, and it's growing every single day. And the states, they're going to start coming, and they're going to start coming hard. So if you talk to your accountant 2 years ago, prior to this, or 3 years ago, or 5 years ago, everything has changed. So what have you done recently? When was the last time you talked to your accountant? Because what worked in the past is not necessarily going to work in the future, or even today.
So you mentioned the first reason there, Mike. Do you have a second reason as well?
Yeah, we have a lot of accountants in the audience. We've got a lot of CPAs, so this one's a little bit touchy. And I sort of mentioned it. Most CPAs know so much more than me on so many things. But when it comes to sales tax, most CPAs, they just don't know multi-state sales tax. They may know their home state, they may know a couple of the surrounding states, but they don't know all of the states out there. and they just haven't had or most of them have just not had the client base that they needed to know all of this, and that has changed. Many CPAs don't offer, sales tax services. There aren't very many classes in school that teach sales tax. There are no questions on the CPA exam about sales tax. So, CPAs just, the only way you learn sales tax is by doing it. If you don't have a bunch of multi-state clients, a lot of CPAs just have never had the experience. Now, there are a lot of firms out there that have people who know and understand sales tax very well. And I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the other firms. And a good CPA will let you know, hey, I don't know what I don't know. And let's get you in touch with someone who does. And they have relationships. We work with lots of CPAs out there, and they introduce us to their clients, and we make sure that their clients are protected. And in turn, they themselves are protected, because no one ever wants to hear, why didn't you tell me? Because even though you tell them you don't do sales tax, they think you know everything. They think that you know everything that's tax related, and you don't ever want to be in that position. Now, I got to tell you something. In all the time that I've been doing this, whenever someone has a big problem and they call us up, the state found them, they owe hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. And to the last one, every one of them always says, my CPA told me, or my accountant told me, or my attorney told me that I did not have to worry about this. So not all CPAs know that they shouldn't be commenting on this. They have very limited knowledge, and what they tell their clients can actually end up putting their clients out of business sometimes. So if you know sales tax, great. If you're not an accountant, ask your accountant how they're staying on top of all of these changes, because the world has literally changed. And if you're not looking at it on a daily basis because it's changing that quickly, then how can you protect your clients? How can they protect you? So, that's the second reason, and by the way, most CPA sales taxes, they don't even pretend that they're offering those services. Some of them do, and some of them are very good at this, but the average CPA, they just don't, offer these types of services. So, you've got to ask those tough questions. How long has your CPA been doing, multi-state tax services? What do they know about, if you're in Florida, what do they know about the state of Washington? What do they know about the state of California? What do they know about the state of Maine? Very important. So that's the second reason. In general, accountants just don't know about sales tax, except if you have a very special accountant, and ask them what they know about sales tax. Ask them how they're staying on top of this with all the other things they need to stay on top of to work with you. How are they staying on top of sales tax?
Wow, Mike, thank you. Thank you for that. And I think what everyone is wondering now is, how big are the risks that these companies are facing?
This is not hyperbole. They're literally business ending. If a state finds you, and we're talking about economic nexus, and that's only 2 years old in some of these states, 8 years old in other states, probably not going to put you out of business. But you got to figure the average sales tax rate is 8%, and penalties and interest can quickly add up to 50% or more. So if you're only doing that for 2 years and only one state finds you, you'll survive that. But the states are coming right now hard after economic nexus, but they're going to find all sorts of different types of physical presence nexus out there. And one of the ones that we see creates the biggest problem is third-party nexus. And the reason this creates such a big problem is because it defies common sense. I mean, who thinks that someone it's a true arm's length transaction, they have no relation to you whatsoever. Who thinks that, someone like that can actually create a sales tax filing collection and filing requirement for you. I mean, this Nexus, unfortunately, the Supreme Court has talked about it twice. Once back in 1960. It was the Scripto case, and what the Supreme Court said there, that we had Scripto was a Georgia company. They had 10 independent contractors in the state of Florida. Florida said, hey, that's enough of a significant presence, and the Supreme Court agreed. They said it's constitutionally insignificant as to what you call these people, as to how you pay these people. They're doing the same thing that employees would do, and therefore, yes, this can create Nexus. 1987, we have this tested again. So the state of Washington goes after a Texas company, Tyler Pipe, and they said, hey, according to the Scripto doctrine, we think you should be collecting our tax and paying our business and occupation tax. And Scripto said, oh, no, this is not like that at all. We only have one person in the state of Washington. They don't represent us exclusively, and they're really not very good at their job. They don't send us a whole lot of business anyway. Well, this goes back to the Supreme Court. And again, the Supreme Court sides with the state. And this time they say, and I'm going to paraphrase the first part here. The second part is really, really important. Doesn't matter what you call someone, doesn't matter how you pay them, doesn't matter if they represent you exclusively or multiple parties, doesn't matter if they do it on a full or part-time basis. Here's what's important. Are they helping you to establish or maintain a marketplace? And if they're helping you to establish or maintain a marketplace, then that can be Nexus creating. And the reason why that language, establish or maintain a marketplace, is so important is because the states picked it up and they incorporated it directly into their statutes, their rules, their regulations, their guidelines. So it's everywhere out there. And, it's umbrella language. So although these first two cases were about solicitation, sales, now states look at this, as customer service, as credit work, collections, training, implementations, installations. I mean, there's a whole bunch of these different activities out there that fall under this umbrella of helping to establish or maintain a marketplace. So common sense. I mean, if you hire a company, maybe you don't call them a subcontractor, maybe you don't call them an independent contractor, you just hire them to perform services for you in another state. Common sense tells you that can't create any link or connection. And again, very smart people out there, whether they be in business or whether they're, CPAs in public practice, this is one that they miss. And, when the states find this, maybe you've had these types of relationships for 8, 10, 12, 15 years. And states, routinely go back 7, 8, 10 years, but they're not limited to that. We've seen them go back further. So that's where this back tax, the penalty and interest really come into play. And once the state finds you've got very little options out there. In other words, if you're being proactive, there's a number of options you can take to mitigate some of this past exposure. But once the state finds you, there's no way to do it. And states talk to each other. So after the first state contacts you, maybe you'll have 2 or 3 more states over the course of the next 6 months contacting you. And that's why this can be so devastating. It can literally put people out of business.
So Mike, I think we've sufficiently talked about the risk here. What are our recommendations for people? What can they do?
All right. I think that, times are tough right now. We're coming out of this COVID-19 and companies are saying, I don't want to, spend any extra money on compliance or, looking at sales tax. But, as we've mentioned, in our webinars and other podcasts, now is exactly the time when you need to be doing this, because this is the time when states get super aggressive. Coming out of any recession, states get super aggressive. They step up their discovery, which are the units that are looking for non-registered taxpayers. They step up their collections people. They step up their auditing. So this is going to be happening, but it's worse this time because, the states have delayed the receipt of income. So they're in a deeper hole than they would normally be coming out of a recession, and they're coming hard. And they were starting to come hard because of this economic nexus. It's 2 years old. It's time that the states started making sure it's enforced. So you've got like this perfect storm out there. Everyone is all of these states are going to be coming looking for you. And once they find you, it's too late. So what I think everyone needs to do, if you're, a CPA or other accounting professional, you got to be talking to your clients. Anyone who sells into multiple states. This is not an internet tax. This is anyone who's selling into multiple states is impacted by this, whether they do it by phone, whether they do it by referral, whether they do it by infomercial. It doesn't matter how this business is getting done. If you have clients who are selling into multiple states, you got to figure out what their Nexus footprint is. We have tools on our website that'll help you figure this out. You can, refer them to someone like us. Lots of ways to figure out what the Nexus footprint is out there. And then once you figure out where this exposure may be, then you got to look at, you got to look at how long has this exposure been building up? So if it's just 6 months, then maybe you just deal with it on a going forward basis. If it's been 6 years, maybe you look at doing, a voluntary disclosure agreement. But there's lots of other options out there. But the first step, you got to see if you have a responsibility, collect or remit the tax. And if you do, how many years of past exposure do you have? So if anyone needs help with this, reach out. But it's something that I think everybody needs to do. You can't afford not to do it.
So Mike, you just told everyone to reach out to us. Do you want to take a second and tell everyone how they can reach out to us?
Absolutely, Ellie. You can go to our website. It's salestaxandmore.com. So www.salestaxandmore.com, all spelled out. We have options where you can ask to speak to a team member. You can schedule a consultation directly with me. You can look at all of the different services that we do have to offer. You can also, there's lots of free tools on that website. They'll help you if you want to do this on your own. They'll help you figure out where you do have this exposure. So that's a great way to contact us, but you can also contact Ellie directly. So Ellie is able to be reached at eMoffat, that's Moffat, at salestaxandmore.com. And she'll either be able to answer your questions herself or be able to put you in touch with the people who can. Remember, sometimes, there are no quick and easy answers. Sometimes a consultation may be required, but if something's quick and easy to answer, we'll go ahead and get that answer for you. So thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And we hope to see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to click subscribe and check out all of the resources we have out on the web.